Speakers, authors, mentors, non-scalable sides of your business have been affected by coronavirus. Today, we're going to be talking to the co-founder of We and Me, Chad Littlefield. Chad joins me now. Thanks for coming on our podcast today.
It's super good to be here. I'm not traveling anymore, so I've got some extra time to jump on a podcast.
Yes. So you are on the speaker circuit, and that circuit is a little haywire right now. But before we get to that, can you tell our audience what is We and Me?
Yeah, if by haywire, by the way, for the speaking market, if by haywire you mean gone,
yes,
that would be an accurate
no getting around
description.
That.
So We and Me is a company that my co-founder Will Wise and I created to recognizing that every single organization, company, or university that we ever worked with said the exact phrase, "Man, communication is really hard. Communication is really tough," and haven't met an organization that has mastered that. And so recognizing that communication is hard, we've set out to make communication and connection easy. And so we do that in a handful of ways. I've created a couple tools, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that we sell on Amazon, which was actually in addition to our business 3 years after doing a lot of the speaking facilitation stuff on the circuit for a long time. But I get to help jump into organizations and help them make connection and communication easy.
And that is not an easy task.
No, it's not.
So what? Tell us your business story. How did you get where you ended up today?
Yeah, the short version of a long story is when I was maybe half the height that I am now, so maybe 9 or 10 years old. I saw the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams, who
good one. I
becomes
love that.
Yeah. So where Robin Williams becomes a doctor to promote the quality of life over quantity. And when I saw that movie, I had my entire life figured out. I was going to be Patch Adams. And then I took a chemistry class in college and was like, ooh, this isn't going to work out very well. 10 years of med school and organic chemistry. Yeah. But I was still enamored with the way that Patch was able to heal people through human connection. So focused all of my effort to figuring not how to get a scalpel, but how to what makes people tick and how do we get them to connect, and what does that connection and trust do in terms of creating results for organizations. So that's what I studied. That's what I've practiced for the last 10 years.
That's a big difference. From going from 10 years of med school to being a speaker focused on communication. Wow.
Yeah, quite well. I made it a whopping 2 weeks into pre-med, so it didn't last very long. But it was a pretty big shift, and definitely landed a crisis of crying on the dorm room bed of like, oh my gosh, my entire plan has fallen through, and then realizing, wait, the world is filled with an immense amount of choices, and I cannot imagine not stumbling on the entrepreneur path now. Like I don't think I could ever go back, and I'm completely unemployable for sure. I can never go back and get a job.
That's one of my favorite things entrepreneurs say when they say they're unemployable.
Yeah, and you've contributed to that because working with you, I'll go out to dinner with friends or something, and somebody will be really excited they got a promotion or a raise or something, and they're it's a $5,000 a year raise or something. I'm like, whoa, we just doubled our ad spend and increased revenue.
We just spent $5,000 in the last month. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that just makes, I can't imagine working years and years and years for that level. And it's an amazing model for some. But now that I've had a dip in the entrepreneur pool, could never rewind and go back.
So what would you say to those that are thinking about Amazon today as kind of like, oh, let me put my toe in that water, but I'm scared. I'm super scared because I haven't done it before, but you've made this big dive in. What would you say to them? What piece of advice?
I would say, so the piece of advice that was given to me almost the moment that I decided to start We and Me was very rudimentary advice. It was start an email list now because you will be happy you did later. And because the earlier you start it, the more emails, the more people are connected to what you're doing. And the same is true for Amazon. So I wish that I started 3 years ago because there is definitely, at least what I've experienced, there is an on-ramp phase. It's not like get on Amazon and then start turning over $100,000 a month, no matter what your product. Like there's a build up, and as you build that platform reputation, like it just continues to increase. And so when I look at the line graph of results that we've gotten over the last year or so, like I wish I just started that line graph 3 years earlier, because if it kept on the trajectory, we would be in a different place. But 3 years from now, maybe we'll be in that place.
So it's, I mean, of course, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But the second best time is today. So,
yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Corona for a bit. It's on everybody's minds. And what's happened to your business in the last 30 days that you're willing to share, and how shocking it's been maybe on the event stage side?
I have to ask, what is coronavirus? Just kidding.
Talking COVID-19.
Just kidding. So it's been one of the things that I have wanted to check in with you more about too, because it's obviously affected our sales. To be transparent, I'm assuming this might be useful for some people to be transparent with numbers. And I'm going to speak in rough numbers, but when we started, so we had like amateurly listed some of our products on Amazon. Sales were kind of trickling in here and there.
You'd also hired the Launchpad company too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Amazon, and that was a program that Amazon actually ran called Amazon Launchpad, which I think is still happening in some variation.
It is. We've only had 3 clients who've ever touched it. I can't say that I've heard anybody speak positively of it. I don't know if you had any thoughts, but
so very early on, it was super positive. However, I don't know how to parse out just like the fact that being on Amazon was positive versus being on Launchpad, because we did both at the same time. Like when we got on Amazon, we also got onto Launchpad almost right at the same time. So I didn't have like 2 years of profit history. I just was seeing sales going up. And so we went from Amazon Launchpad, which I thought at the time was amazing, something like $5,000 a month or so was happening. And to the point where, and now Corona's definitely thrown a wrench in this, but to the point where we were at a steady 20 to 25K a month, really off of one item. Like there were sales trickling through in a couple other decks, but we've been out of inventory and stuff. So pretty much off of one card deck called We Connect cards that we created, basically bringing in, between 20 and 25,000 a month, which is insane. Now that has dwindled drastically. I don't know if you've looked at our numbers, Stephen,
I've got them in front
recently.
of me. So full disclosure to our audience. So we and me hired my Amazon guy a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, and to be honest, I found you from a YouTube video,
which is awesome.
Googling like, can somebody help with Amazon ads? Because Amazon on the back end, if you've experienced it, is a cluster bomb. And so, reached out to you, and then the first session that we had, I remember, was like, I don't know, probably lasted a half hour, and you did more in that half hour than I had done on Amazon probably in a year. And I was like, whoa, this dude moves fast and makes magic happen very quickly in ways that would take me 2 years to learn. So
that is, of course, an amazing testimonial and perfectly describes how we like to do business. We're pure executors. So while you have a lot of journey out and about, and your speaker circuit, I'm sure, takes you all over the world, we, on the other hand, are stuck in our basement working nonstop on the back end of accounts. We hardly get out to do anything. So we're pure executors. I have some competition that will have like pictures of themselves shaking hands with Jeff Bezos on their website. And that is not us. We do not go to conferences at all. And that's because we're just so busy doing stuff. But yeah, so I'm sure you have been traveling quite a bit previously before this thing died down. Give us some insight into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. When everything started to shut down a few weeks ago, I was actually in Pennsylvania to lead a workshop at Crayola headquarters, and wow. I got a call like 12 hours before I was going to go facilitate, saying, "Hey, we're just all got the order to work from home. Sorry, we're gonna have to postpone." And then that started a sequence of a handful of other clients saying canceled, or actually just postponed, which is great because clients pay in advance. But yeah, not traveling And on just a quick personal note, has been kind of cool because my wife and I had a cute little newborn baby on January 1st, and so I've been was kind of on paternity leave anyway for a little while, and so that's just continued. So, going from traveling once a week to my last trip was to Portland in December, is the longest that I haven't traveled in years. For sure. So it's kind of been definitely a readjustment, but also kind of nice. But that also is a major component of our business. So right now, our revenue is about 40% product related sales. Some of that's through Amazon and some of that's through our own online store. And then the rest is from speaking. So in pretty much an instant, 60 to 70% of our revenue dissipated, which is, I guess, better than restaurants or like some other industries, but pretty intense. But the fact that for a lot of speakers I know who maybe they had a book out, maybe they have some kind of like fledgling products that they haven't invested that much in, 90+% of their business disappeared overnight because flights aren't happening. Like I run a business based on the premise of getting large groups of people together in confined spaces. So obviously that's not happening.
So that's really interesting to think about. Amazon can be a good opportunity if you're an author right now or a speaker, somebody out there that doesn't have a big focus on a physical product, has intellectual property to some extent. They might have a book, they just haven't promoted. It's an afterthought. They bring it and put it on the table when they speak. But they haven't gone to market with it, so to speak. And you have gone to market. And so because of that, you've protected a segment of your income. You've diversified your portfolio, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that has taken, I'm sure it's pretty stressful seeing a 60, 70% drop, but less stressful perhaps?
Way less stressful. Yeah, I'm mindful of it, but I'm not remotely worried about not being able to pay bills or feed family, which I know many gig economy kind of service-based folks are a little bit worried about that, a little bit more worried about that. And so I think now too, even so, yes, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and which is when we started creating We Connect cards and some of these tools. Like we didn't just pop them out of nowhere. Like I think part of the reason the product sells really well is because it's a really great product. And
let's talk about that product too.
Yeah. So the products that's by far number one bestseller is called We Connect cards. It's a deck of 60 cards with questions on one side, and it's meant to just make connection and communication really, really easy for organizations, conferences, events, and as well as education market. Really, really big in the education market for sure. But I think one of the things that we haven't even really talked about a ton, Stephen, but I think one of the things that's contributed to the success of the deck on Amazon, which would be true for all speakers, is that yes, the ads and all the stuff that we're doing has ramped up sales in a way that I never would be able to, and allowed me to scale. And I'm also sending an abundance of organic traffic because every keynote that I gave like a handful of months ago, gave a keynote to 8,000 people where all 8,000 people had a single card with a question on it at their seat. And we did this big question swap, this experience, getting them into conversations that skip past the small talk. And so now you've got 8,000 people who have a card with a URL on the bottom and just this link back to product. So it's kind of this bicycle wheel that both sides of the business, the service and the product, feed each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the coolest things that we did together is get an Amazon vanity URL. And for those that are watching on YouTube, we'll put a link to this. Is we got Chad the vanity URL, also known as a pretty URL, amazon.com/we. That's 2 letters, by the way. WE. And it's just amazing to think about the fact that there's a 2-letter difference between that domain and amazon.com. And you can get on stage and be like, yeah, go check me out. I'm on amazon.com/we.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty incredible. And if you go to the page, you can actually see what we set up, but it's basically a landing page on Amazon. You probably have the technical terms for that, Stephen, of what it is. But there's a video of me and my co-founder speaking at TEDx using the cards, and then not just the We Connect cards, but all of our products listed. So it's kind of like a mini website hosted on Amazon.com/we, which is really, really great. Easy to say, easy to remember, familiar, trust building, and the fact that at some level, whether you're technically savvy or not, if you're in an audience and you hear that URL, there's some rapport or trust built, I feel like, wow, it's pretty cool.
I think it's really awesome, and the fact that it's so short is awesome.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on the product and the service helping propel each other, and it's a really awesome idea where you handed out a single card to 8,000 members. That's a very clever idea. It's like getting a business card in their hand, except something a little bit more useful than a business card.
Yeah. A business card that also has some tie. And I found actually after the fact that I've met dozens and dozens and dozens of people randomly a year, 2 years after the fact that they've been to a conference or something that I spoke at, and they open up their wallets or their purses and take out the card that they had because whatever that question had sparked some conversation or had some deep significance.
It became a keepsake. Wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. Anchors the brand, which is really like, we're here talking about the business side of what we're doing, but I didn't get into any of that. Like if all of our Amazon sales completely tuckered out, I would still keep doing what I'm doing because I'm passionate about what we're adding to the world. I think that we live in a world that's filled with sips of digital connection. And on the whole, I think we're craving a gulp. And so we'll continue to putting out connection anyway. And then the entrepreneur part just adds this like huge element of fun of being able to also do good and do well at the same time.
So Chad, you have some skills that are unique that not a lot of the entrepreneurs or clients I work with possess. And,
Sure.
One example that comes to my mind is instead of, shooting me an email, you would shoot me a video clip,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, hey, check this out. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I want you to focus on. And so, talk to us a little bit about how you think about communication differently and why that could be applied in every business.
Yeah, I'll share it in a way that I think is could be really, really useful for all of your companies and brands, for whoever's listening. I can't remember the author's name, but I think it's a new book. I don't know that it's come out yet, called Fanocracy. And it's this concept of kind of based on the premise of, you take a musician who has millions potentially of like fanatics, people who love what they do. They'll pay to go to live events. They feel deeply connected to this person, even though they've never even met. And so the idea of Fanocracy is how do you create, as a brand, how do you create fans rather than just customers? And he talks about this one neuroscientist research on the proximity of connection. And it's really interesting now talking about everything social distancing, but he literally has mapped out space markers of different levels of connection. And so I might butcher this a little bit, but I think within 4 feet is considered a real personal human connection. To be within 4 feet of somebody, you can see their eyes, you can almost smell them, like you're really close.
I think I found it. I've got it on my screen. I know you can't see it, Chad, but it released on
Perfect.
Audible on Jan 7th. I'll put a link to this in the podcast notes just for those that
Perfect.
want to get a
Beautiful.
copy of it.
Yeah, I will actually want to listen to it. I heard him speaking on a podcast. I can't remember his name. Anyhow, so that within 4 feet is that human connection, and basically, and then within 4 to 20 feet is kind of your like second zone, and you pay attention to them, you're aware of them, but you're not necessarily connected. And then outside of 20 feet, like people are basically just there as objects on your little stage. And so the idea of Fanocracy is creating a human connection that creates the intimacy of being within 4 feet of somebody. The problem with that is that most brands are scaling to a point where they're like, Jeff Bezos is not going to get within 4 feet of all Amazon customers, right? So how do you create that personal connection? And the best example that I've heard so far was an Adele concert that a friend went to. And at the end of the concert, Adele dropped loads and loads of confetti, but the confetti had her lyrics printed on the confetti in her handwriting. So
Wow.
people go around, find the lyric that spoke to them. They hold that, right? That like deep personal connection. And so I think that that concept of being able to create that level of connection is really powerful. And I lost sight of the original question, but hopefully that rant was useful.
That was a good book recommendation. And you were talking about deep, meaningful, connections and how you communicate differently. So I think you answered it.
Right.
All right. So let's pivot over to some Amazon proper, if you will. And by the way, for those that were listening that were wondering, how do I get a short link on Amazon for your brand store? The way that that's done is you have to have your brand registry in place. You got to have your trademark. And if you don't, we can help you file a trademark on myamazonguy.com. And just go to the service section, click on trademarks. We also can help you get a brand store built, which has that vanity URL in it. And it was, probably one of my favorite vanity URLs we ever built. And it was very much based on the fact that We and Me had a trademark for the term "we" with an exclamation mark, which was awesome in itself. But okay, cool. So Amazon sales for We and Me right now are down. For most of my clients, they're actually up. And I suspect the reason why your sales are down is just because people aren't communicating in person a lot right now. So they're not using the cards at an event per se. Now, obviously, I think they should, and I'm sure you would advocate the same, is have those on your desk. And when you're having that Zoom session and your cat walks by, you need to change that subject, pull one of those cards out. Okay, here we go. What were we talking about again? Sales? Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we've actually we've been leading a whole bunch of virtual connection labs, and it is a really useful tool because with more virtual communication requires a little bit more structure or facilitation than whatever organically can happen in person. And so to have cards to do what we would call connection before content is a big deal. But if you're listening to this, you want Amazon stuff, so we can dive back into the Amazon world. I do wonder about sales being down there. I think part of the other thing is education is a big market. Schools are out of session, and so no teachers, no educators are buying them, etc. Yeah.
But so so here's a couple of pieces of good news, I think. So Amazon is absolutely recession proof, and for most clients, demand is up. And that's because people aren't going to the physical brick and mortar to find something. So if you're selling a widget or a supplement or a beauty product, consumers have nowhere else to go right now. They're going to go there. Now, with an education type product, most of our clients that are focused in your vector are down. And we're trying to wrap our head around, what can we do to reposition this? What can we do? But for the most part, it's just because the impression share on those likely suspected terminologies that used to convert well, not as many people searching them right now. I think that e-commerce will be the first sector that recovers from the coronavirus COVID-19 situation. For sectors that are hit, for sure. So the moment I think your sessions start coming back, we're going to see, once you get back on the circuit, I think we're going to see Amazon spike quite a bit. But I think before we started this podcast, we were kind of brainstorming what to talk about today, and you came up with an interesting idea where you would ask me questions about Amazon. Yeah. And so I want to turn that over to you, and I haven't done this before, but it might be an interesting segment. So go ahead. What questions do you have for me?
And the segue to actually my first question. So my partner Will and I wrote a book called Ask Powerful Questions, Create Conversations That Matter. So only fitting maybe that we flip the script a little bit. So I am curious to start out, especially if there are other speakers, authors, mentors, etc., listening to this podcast. Books. I know that we've talked about before. We've been doing some experiments, marketing, doing paid ads on the book. And what's your experience been with that? Our data is kind of muffled by coronavirus, but it seems like we were starting to have success, but not to the scale. So yeah, I'm assuming other people have books and would love to sell more books and would love to use Amazon ads to be able to do that. What's your experience been with book ads?
So books have been a struggle, and it's because books were not allowed to even advertise on Amazon for years. And they kind of floated the idea back and forth of allowing book ads. And we've seen them kind of float back and forth on whether they're going to make that a vertical they're going to focus on. So it's been difficult. It's harder to get a book off the ground on Amazon than it would be to say get your bottle opener, which I'm holding one in my hand. I happen to be holding one, fidgeting with it, and that's a difficult thing to overcome. Now, things that you can do to increase book sales. This is generic advice. Make sure you've got a photo of the author and your author bio filled out. Make sure you've got somebody reading your book as a secondary lifestyle image, if at all possible. And that will help the consumer put themselves in the shoes of using the product. And that's probably the most missed opportunity for people that sell books online. They just, here's the front of my cover, here's the back of my cover, done. And instead, they really should be focused on what does this book do for the consumer and why should they buy it? And address that through the visuals, the bullet points, and potentially even the title. And sometimes you got to stress, what the, not just the title of the book, but what can the book do for a consumer, and put that in the title. So we've got your pocket guide to facilitating human connections. That's the title of the book. But then the rest of the title goes on to say, self-education improvement literature, author featured in TED Talks, including 22 icebreaker and team building exercises, right? So like that context, not only is it chock full of keywords, but it also helps the consumer know what they're getting. Because if you just had Pocket Guide to Facilitating Human Connections, this book could be about literally anything. But with that added context, it really kind of tailors it in. And then the secondary images where you've got your hands kind of floating through the book, it helps the consumer know banana for scale, how I use this. Very, very helpful information.
Now for books, and maybe this is outside of your domain, because most of you are doing products through Seller Central, I believe.
Yeah,
at least that's what we're doing.
Most of them are on Seller Central, yes. But there is a specific book portal.
Yeah, so our one book is actually public. We intentionally publish it through Amazon, KDP, Kindle Direct. And so to my knowledge, we can't actually, for the Pocket Guide, we can upload all these books and stuff. For the Ask Powerful Questions, we actually are, and most books on Amazon are actually stuck to front cover, back cover,
You're
and
correct.
It's automatically uploaded by Amazon.
You're absolutely correct.
That's how it is.
And so
we talked about the one option of potentially listing that book as a product and just ordering our own book and then reselling as a product.
That's the benefit of doing it through Seller Central. And that requires physical copies being shipped in though. So it's more work, but it can pay dividends. So it just depends. But if Amazon's, the one that's printing the book per se, then
and Amazon historically has been fine with that. They print the books and at Amazon or use some vendor to do that, and then they ship them right back to one of their warehouses. And I guess because that guy also gets printed with a particular ISBN number, which is linked to their book. I don't know if we're going too technical here.
No, that's good. That's good. So with regular products, you've got UPC codes. With books, they're ISBNs. They're equivalent to each other. It's basically just a way to identify a product. And if you don't know how to obtain UPCs and you're listening to this or an ISBN, UPCs can be purchased cheaply off eBay. Basically, they're retired UPC codes. With ISBNs, I don't actually know how to obtain those. Chad, do you know how to obtain those?
Yeah, there's a ton of places that you can get them, not illicitly, but what you don't want to do. So there's my ISBN, it's like Boker or something, just as you're Googling. BOWKER is the legitimate site that you want to get them off of. And similar to UPC code, you buy them in a block. I didn't know you could get UPC codes off of eBay. We paid a decent penny.
You're supposed to go through GS1, but unless you're going into retail stores, it's not needed. And for Amazon purposes, if you're just an Amazon only business or an online only business, there's no benefit of going through GS1 at this time. That could change at any point in time. But the whole purpose of having UPCs was just to identify a product across
just so they can scan it
the world, right? And as long as you're addressing that need, then Amazon doesn't care.
Yeah. Okay. Two, I'm conscious of the time, so I got two big can of worm questions for
All
you.
right, here we go.
One is we've got, and I'm really excited about this. We've got a new product coming out called the Connection Toolkit, which you and your team has built out the whole page for. And so I'm curious if you can walk through and talk through launch strategy a little bit. And I think that's particularly relevant right now, especially for people listening who are saying, ooh, best time to plant a tree is either 10 years ago or now. If I'm trying to get on Amazon, when we go to launch this connection toolkit, I want to invest quite a bit in making this launch really successful. And so what are some of the things that go through your head on your team of like, what do you do to quote launch a product on Amazon to make it successful and gain that velocity or momentum?
You bet. So we're going to go through the title, the bullets, the photos, make sure everything shines. So right now we've checked those boxes for the most part. We probably still need a lifestyle image or two from you to get the humanization of the photos right now. So like there's just photos of the product at the moment on the toolkit listing. But one of the things that we do is, with the bullet points, we run the intro of each bullet in all caps, the first 2 to 5 words of a bullet point in all caps. And what that does is basically helps the eye know that, hey, within the first 5 seconds, this is what I'm going to be talking about. Because somebody might have interest in your product, but they want to, they're short on time or they just want to get to the point quicker. And so they'll come in and just read, 15 seconds of bullet points. Now, somebody who's past that, they're making a longer buying decision, they're going to read more copy. Your listing has a ton of optimized HTML copy in the product description, but one thing we need to do before we launch this is get A+ content built. So this is something that we need to queue up, and I'm going to write that down on my list to help you out on that. And of course, anybody listening to this, you have to have your brand registry in place to get A+ content, but it is absolutely one of the most important things you do as part of your launch strategy because it allows the item to organically rank fast, very, very fast. After you've got the listing optimization done, then you need to focus on traffic generation. So we've addressed all the conversion elements, then you transfer over to traffic generation. And here is where the advertising and the traffic within Amazon's ecosystem is so important. Additionally, we have found that if you send external traffic in the first month of a listing going live, it can also be rather beneficial. And that's because it sends signals to Amazon that this item is important, that this item has the capacity to help Amazon grow its platform. So we'll often advertise items at a loss because that traffic that's generated in the first couple of weeks will help you jump leaps and bounds over your competition to go up the charts a lot quicker.
Interesting. So by that recommendation, actually, when we go to launch on our end, because we'll obviously do a whole bunch of launch stuff to do this, sending out an email to our list and actually directing people to Amazon rather than our online store
very common,
be very useful in that first month.
It absolutely would be. When are you launching this product, by the way?
I haven't got the ETA date from the plant, but sometime in the next hopefully 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And it seems like some freight and stuff is delayed right now. But.
Got it. So I'll put a target deadline on my side to get that A+ content done for you. And what I recommend to people is make sure you have the A+ content live at least 14 days before your go live date. And that's because if you have any issues during your recording of that A+ content, you're going to need to address them, and it can take 2 weeks for Amazon to accept your A+ content. So that's really important to be done. Okay. Each photo, by the way, and then I'll let you get back to more questions here, has alt text behind it, keywords that can be implemented. It's the most common mistake people miss when they're building out their A+ content is not putting keywords behind those photos in the alt text. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious, in addition to photos, what's the impact of product videos as you've...
Minor. So just showing up with the video on the page is usually the checkbox that we try and commit to. So for somebody who has the ability to articulate like you do, what I would do is I would shoot a 60-second clip where you just hold the product and demo it and explain why it's cool. And it doesn't need to be a $30,000 video production just by simply having the video on there so that the consumer gets the banana for scale and understands like why this is important, giving you the 2-3 main features of the item. But it will not help build traffic. Videos do not help build traffic on Amazon. They are only there for conversion.
But and I imagine from a conversion, so that We Connect cards is an easy $25 for most people. That's not like they're not going to read, potentially they're not going to read the page super in depth. Whereas the connection toolkit is going to be closer to that $100 mark. Assuming there might be a little bit more research that goes into that. So
they're gonna, they're really gonna need to know what's in it. So that might be, instead of that 1 minute video, that might be a 2.5 minute video where you're saying, here's all the value and why this matters.
Yeah. Okay, so still related to video, I know we just piloted. Our account got access to, I think only a few or some percentage of sellers got access to video ads. We've been running those. It seems like we kind of started running them like 4 days before everything blew up with coronavirus.
Which is bad timing, unfortunately.
Bad data, bad timing. Have you seen any strong impacts or data from other clients, or just in general hearing things about how video ads are working? Which basically, if you're listening, you see video ads, I think only on mobile as you're scrolling through.
Correct. I think that's going to change
and then a
soon,
video
though.
starts auto playing.
Yeah, I think it's going to change soon.
So any impact that you've noticed from video ads?
So in some categories, the ads are super cheap in videos, and in others, they're super expensive, and there doesn't seem to be in kind of a middle ground. So it's very hit or miss. I think that the category and the way it targets affects how important video ads will be. But basically what I would say is everybody should be testing one of these out and let the ACoS make your decision, right? So sponsored products are at the bottom of your conversion funnel, and sponsored brands are at the top. And somewhere in between there is the video to try and drive impression counts and branding. And so for someone like you, this is a good branding opportunity. In addition, you might be willing to pay a little bit higher ACoS to get your name out there. For somebody selling an apple slicer or typical kitchen gadget, you have to manage that purely by ACoS, not by branding. And so you have to kind of pull that back quite a bit.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, which is worth noting, in that there is a hidden benefit that Amazon doesn't factor in the ACoS for me, which is if 1,000 people buy Deca We Connect cards, guaranteed at least a handful of those people will end up emailing or calling me later on requesting a keynote, some facilitation, some sort of a thing. Now, I'm not able to really clearly directly track that. Man, I'm realizing actually now, Stephen, I have like 15 other questions. So maybe
all right,
little lightning round.
Lightning round, go for it.
So one of the things that are super happy with how we've built up from a few $1,000s a month to $25,000 a month. Things are working really well, and so the entrepreneur is always playing the game of, well, if I can spend $999 and make $1,000, I'm just going to do that infinity times, right? And so, what is the biggest limiting factor of just scaling up ads to infinitum?
Available impressions, competition, and reviews. So depending on how much space is available, can factor in that. And the more ad spend that you put out there, the worse your results are going to get inevitably, just because of those three factors.
Say more about the reviews component of that.
So if you have an item that has 50 reviews and your competition has 1,000, your conversion rate is going to be weaker. Now, New products come out all the time, though, and consumers like new products, so they're going to still buy a product with less reviews. But if they're on the fence between two and everything else is equal, they're going to go with the reviews.
Yeah, that's good to know for us just building, because there's, I think, some of our biggest competitors, I don't know, like 100 to 300 reviews. I think the We Connect cards are floating at 70 or so right now. So that's an interesting thing, potentially, that we could be reaching out and garnering some more reviews during this slowed down coronavirus period.
And getting reviews is really difficult. It's been harder than ever. So there's a new tool that just came out from Feedback 5 where you can click a button and it will go ask for reviews from consumers. And it's not banned, whereas like 60% of sellers opt out of seller emails. This one gets through still.
Oh, interesting. I don't think we've actually implemented that.
Brand new. I just shot a podcast on Thursday about it. So it's brand new.
Oh, cool. And there's something too, I'm curious if you can share creative ways that people have if they're interested in capturing the customer information or leads from Amazon in a okay way. For example, on the back of our box right now, there's a link to get access to 10 video tutorials that use the deck. And if you go to that link, weand.me/connect, we just have rerouted it to a type form that says basically log in, get the stuff, but we also collect email and a couple trinkets of information in exchange for that. I'm curious if you've seen other ways that people have.
So we're getting away from incentivized reviews of any kind. It's very dangerous to say, hey, leave me a review and I'll give you something. But instead, what we're doing now is take a picture of me using your product and throw a hashtag on it, and I'll give you some swag. That's what you should do next. So, we and me could be the hashtag, and then anytime somebody post a picture of them using your product, you go out there and you give them your next product or a supplementary product or something like that. That'll create a ton of buzz.
Got it. Okay. So, and to be clear, we're not doing that lead capture to generate incentivized reviews. And we're not actually trading this for that. The product anyway has the tutorials built in. That's one of the things that comes along with the product.
Which is super valuable. I apologize for going down the incentivized review path. I went down that path because it comes up frequently. So I apologize. I didn't mean to mischaracterize that.
Yeah. I've definitely got Amazon packages that have little inserts or something in them that are like, that's against Amazon.
I've got one on my desk right now, and we reported them.
Oh, wow.
Amazon gave me a $10 gift card for reporting them. So yeah, looks like
that is very funny.
Trying to get my webcam back here. There we go. All right. So what else you got? What other questions?
Oh man. Okay. So talked about launch a little bit, talked about books a little bit, talked about
and I want to emphasize that launch, the first 2 weeks the product goes out, just drive as much traffic as you possibly can at a huge loss. It will pay huge dividends. And then pull that way back right around day 30.
Related to that, right now there's no inventory on the product. It's not and because of that, the listing's not live. So when we launch it, we'll have 0 reviews. And so can you explain a little bit about like the first days of getting those reviews so that there's some trust built so that people actually buy the product? Because I don't think I've ever bought a product with 0 reviews on Amazon.
It's pretty common. You could drive a ton of traffic on with ads to begin with, and it'll still pull off. It'll still produce. It's even easier during Q4, but nonetheless, a popular product that can skyrocket business rankings early on will make a huge difference.
Okay, cool. And anything else on the background that as the entrepreneur that we can do to help fuel that launch or add some
external traffic, which we kind of briefly touched on? So anything that you can do to drive traffic at any cost into Amazon during that honeymoon period, first 2 weeks especially, up to first 30 days. So your social media posting, your email list, all of that, drive them all to Amazon instead of your website. And then in your second follow-up of your product launch, 30 days later, you can go back to driving to your website, and that's totally fine. But if you drive them to Amazon first, that's really helpful. Having buy on Amazon buttons on your website can also be helpful. People that are not going to trust a website will trust Amazon, and you'll drive sales that way too. That can be helpful. Things that most people are not doing this, but you can also send out mailers or buy lists. So old school marketing techniques that drive to online can still be effective, and they're now cheaper because people aren't doing it anymore. But not that one's way more complex to pull off. So for a visual product like you, I would say maybe create a video ad on YouTube and run it. That's what I would consider.
Yeah. Which we have a video coming out. Okay. That's an interesting thing about the direct mail too, because that we have a decent sized customer list of people who have bought from our online store and have their addresses and info. And so if they got something about a new product launching on Amazon, that could actually be an impactful way of driving a bit more traffic that at a pretty low cost. To send out 5,000 flyers or so isn't going to cost heaps and tons.
So I got time for 1 or 2 more questions.
All right. At the risk of diluting the focus a little bit, I have multiple times been interested in actually ditching my own online store and just selling through Amazon. The reason I don't do that is because of the unreliable lead capture, which is really valuable for our business anyway. So can you tell me a little bit about about that. And then the second bit about selling internationally. The other reason I don't do that is because it seems like selling internationally on Amazon opens up a whole bunch of complexities, whereas right now we can ship around the world, no problem.
It adds a lot of complexity to go international. So Canada is an easy one to do, doesn't require a lot of effort. Still some VAT and taxes. There's a new shipping program, remote fulfillment, that has been rolling out. We've only seen 10% of accounts get access to that. And with Amazon's current corona situation, that's probably 3 months out now. Europe, the United Kingdom would be another one that you might want to be on your radar. VAT taxes is a huge pain in the butt. It adds a tremendous amount of complexity. There's just no doubt about it. I don't know if it's worth it at this stage for most clients that we deal with, but we have maybe 5 clients that are doing anything in Europe right now. Especially with Britain's Brexit, it adds a lot more complexity, unfortunately.
And so Canada is an interesting one that I may put on our list to consider for later, because we probably lose money on a lot of orders that come from Canada because shipping is just high. And so if we could sell stuff and we get a decent amount of orders from Canada, there's a decent market. So I wonder if even choosing to just open that one up may actually be a smart move.
I think you should ship some inventory into FBA in Canada. It's absolutely worth a test. And the only challenge is just getting it through customs. Once you're past that, it's not too bad because they'll ship direct to consumer. Beauty products don't go to Canada. They have problems with that kind of stuff. But like physical goods that you're not eating or putting on your body, Canada is a good one to test.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Chad, I appreciate you coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast today. For those, I think I may have not even mentioned my name when I started my podcast today. I'm Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. Butchered that one. That happens sometimes when you're trying to think about that good question to queue up for your awesome guests. So thank you all for listening. And if you have need for Amazon consulting, go over to myamazonguy.com. And if you want to pick up one of Chad's books, Chad, where do they go?
Amazon.com/we.
Yeah, there it is. All right. All right. Well, thanks again for joining today. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, it was an awesome joy to be on, and to get, that I enjoy working together when I'm coming on here for free just to chat with somebody who I pay.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to the My Amazon Guy podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us and tell somebody else about it so we can grow our audience. Thanks so much.